Good morning and welcome to the show, and thanks for waking up with this morning. I have a very interesting lady here in the studio by the name of Kimberly Drayton. She works for StoryCall. StoryCall is a new service that is provided to families to capture your family stories, your legends, or maybe grandma and grandpa's stories of when they were growing up and capture them forever. Is that kind of what you're doing, Kimberly? I mean, you're an interviewer for StoryCall, right?
Yes, I am, and that is exactly what we're doing. We are capturing stories. We follow what we call a story map, and we start off from early childhood and we go all the way up through adulthood.
So let me see if I got this right. I would call you and say, listen, my elderly parents are full of stories, or maybe someone's sick and they're not, and no one gets out of this life alive.
Right.
And maybe you want to preserve that family folklore or those family stories somehow. I would call you.
Well, what you do is you would register with StoryCall, and you would tell them that you would register. You would open up an account, and you would be the owner of the account, and you would put down who you would want us to interview. And from there, you're scheduling interviews, which are half-hour increments. And you would pick your storyteller and who you wanted to, the story person, and who you wanted to talk to give your story.
So you, as the interviewer, somebody picks you as an interviewer.
Yes.
You make that first contact, right?
Yes.
And you're like, hey, I'm from StoryCall and I want to hear your story. And then you have what you called a story map?
It's a story map, and we start from early childhood. So we start asking questions right from the beginning we'd ask about their parents, where their parents are from. Tell me about your grandparents. And we proceed all the way on up.
And what do you do with all this information? You write it all down, I'm assuming?
No, it's actually being recorded, and you will have your own website that you can go on to, and the family members can go on and listen to the interview at any time. As well as they can join in on the interview and ask questions while I'm interviewing their family member.
So so say you're a busy person, you want to make sure you get all those stories from mom and dad or grandma and grandpa.
Yes.
We hire you, this service, you get all these half-hour interviews together and you park them on the website for your family to listen to.
Yes.
And it's there virtually forever.
It's there forever. It's by the time you're done, we have a biography of your family member that you can go and listen to anytime you want.
Wow, that's amazing stuff. And there's such a interest in genealogy and ancestry and things like that. I mean, kids who aren't even born yet, or maybe kids who are too little to understand, when they become of age, they can go back to those stories.
Exactly. One of the co-founders founded this because his grandfather died in 2011, and he realized he didn't have any of his stories preserved. Nothing. He had some memories, but that's all there were. There was nothing to share with his children. There was nothing to share or go back and look at. And he thought of this idea, or this concept, and here we are with StoryCall
And
now.
what's better than getting it from the horse's mouth?
Oh, it's so great because you can listen, you can hear their voice, you can hear their stories. And I have to tell you, it's an awesome thing, sorry, excuse me, to be talking to some of the people that I am interviewing, because we're doing it right now. We're in a testing phase. We hope to have the launch the first week in November.
I think that's an amazing concept because stories get told and retold, and they change with every version, I'm sure, over the generations. And just having that there,
yes,
as a historical record for your family to enjoy for years and years to come,
it's there forever.
It's an awesome concept. We have to run off to the local weather right now, but on the other side of that, I do want to talk about maybe some of the more interesting people that you've met as an interviewer for StoryCall. And we'll be right back after your local weather, brought to you by the West Pittman Law Firm, westpittmanlawfirm.com. Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Kimberly Drayton from StoryCall. And if you missed the last segment, you want to hang in for this one because StoryCall is a service that captures your family's stories forever. Isn't that true?
That is true.
I mean, the last segment we talked about how you do all this. Someone would register with StoryCall online, and then they would pick an interviewer like you. You're an interviewer, and then you would make contact with the person who may be elderly, grandparent or whatever, and you get all of their stories in half-hour interviews.
Yes.
You follow this story map. Now, you must have met some interesting people.
Oh, I have met some wonderful people. They're so interesting. I spoke to one gentleman. I had about 10 interviews with him, and he was in the Vietnam War. So I asked him, I said, do you mind if I ask you questions about the Vietnam War? I mean, these are memories that we've captured for his children and their children, and they're just going to have them forever. They're always going to be there.
Do you feel like people open up to you more because you're not a family member? You're almost like a disinterested third party, or you're a third party outside the family, and maybe they'll tell you war stories they wouldn't necessarily tell their children?
I definitely think so. And there's one woman who I interview whom I absolutely love, and she was saying some things about her son, and she's like, I don't know if he's going to like these things. And I'm saying, don't worry about it. He's going to love these things because he's going to have this for the rest of his life, for his children's lives. He'll always be able to push the button on the website and listen to all the stories that she's told.
Yeah, because, the interviewees aren't going to sugarcoat it for you.
Right.
They may sugarcoat it for the kids,
Exactly.
or the relatives.
Exactly.
But, so what's your typical interviewee? Are they elderly people for the most part?
Right now, it's mostly elderly. That's the key, that everybody seems to want to capture the elder stories, because, you talk to your parents or you talk to your grandparents, but you don't really sit there and ask them questions about their past. Life gets busy, and next thing you know, they're older, they pass away, and you're like, oh my gosh, well,
Yeah.
I don't really know much. I wish I asked more. I had that with my dad. There were so many things I don't know, and I wish Story Call was around at that time so that I was able to participate in this, and I can go back and listen to his story.
And there's a lot of questions family members just wouldn't even think to ask.
Exactly.
And if they did think to ask them, they might be too embarrassed, a little too weird to ask,
Well, here's a good point. Family members can join the call. Family members can post questions, and they can pick and choose what questions we ask. So the family members have a lot of input of what we're asking and how the interviews go, which is a great thing.
And what's been the response so far? When you call people, is there ever anybody who doesn't want to talk to you?
I had one gentleman, I'm on like my 10th call with him. The first day I called him, he wasn't even sure I was calling. His daughter didn't tell him much. He was like a deer in headlights. So I thought, oh, he's probably not going to want to do this anymore.
He didn't get it.
No, he didn't get it. It took probably about a month or so, and I thought, oh, he's not going to call back. Well, they scheduled another appointment, and after that, we were talking like twice a week. I could tell he looked forward to it, I looked forward to it, and he loved telling his stories.
Oh, that's amazing.
It was great. It's great.
Have you met anybody that has kind of become attached to you, maybe? I mean, they're telling you all this stuff.
Yes.
Have you made friendships with people?
I do. There's two. There's that one gentleman, and there's another woman, an elderly woman, who's actually, she has cancer. She's terminal. So it's like, I worry about her now. If they don't schedule, I think, oh, I hope she's doing well. It's like we become part of their family.
That's such amazing
and
stuff.
their stories are amazing. Their stories are amazing.
And we're so out of time, it's not funny, but how do people do this? How do we register for this? How do we get engaged in Story Call?
Well, we have our website, which is storycall.us, but we're going to be doing a launch in November. I hope to come back on. There's a lot of exciting things coming to the website. I might even have some giveaways. I might have a code that I can give out to people to get started, to maybe get a little bit of a discount on some of the calls. And it's just
so it's Story Call US.
Yes.
Right? www.storycall.us.
Yes.
And we can learn more about it there. Kimberly Drayton, It's been a fascinating conversation, and you are certainly welcome back after the launch in November.
Yes, I can't wait to come back and tell everybody about it.
Yeah, let's hear some more stories.
I know.
We want to hear it all.
Thanks.
And we'll be right back after your Mad Hatter Minute.
Hi, I'm David Lovett, and this is your Mad Hatter Minute. Shock absorbers and struts wear out pretty slowly, but you shouldn't take them for granted. Your shock absorbers and struts do a very important job, and you need to pay attention to them. Shocks and struts keep your tires on the road, and your tires are what allow you to safely handle your car through turns, over bumps, and even stop in time. When your shocks are worn out, your tires bounce excessively over bumps. The car will lunge forward when you brake, it'll lunge backwards when you accelerate, and overall give you poor performance and poor handling. All of this hurts the ability for you to control your car and wears down on other suspension parts. Replacing worn shocks and struts saves money in the long run. We generally recommend replacing shocks and struts at 50,000 miles. Sometimes special needs arise for heavy-duty shocks. If you do a lot of towing or if you do a lot of hauling, a standard shock won't be sufficient. You need to come in and let us replace it with a heavy-duty shock. This will give you more stability and more control while you drive your vehicle. If you own a performance sports car, you need to have performance suspension and performance shocks and struts to give you the extra handling around the corners and curves. It's really a matter of safety. Lastly, experts advise replacing all four shocks or all four struts at the same time so you have the same stability and same control at all four wheels. I'm David Lovett, and that has been your Mad Hatter Minute.
Hey folks, this is Joshua Brown with Mad Hatter on 23rd Street. Is your check engine light on? If it is, text MADHAT28, that's MADHAT28, to 24247 and we'll check it for free.
Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Dr. Tara Griffin at Emerald Coast Dental Sleep Medicine. Thanks for letting us back in.
Thanks for coming back in.
It's always good to see you. Now, wearing the same blue shirt as last time. Isn't that amazing? No. You know, we had talked about CPAP machines in our last interview, and there are a lot of people who have been diagnosed with sleep apnea. They have the CPAP machine, but for whatever reason, they can't use it, and they stick it in the closet.
Yes.
What would you say to those people?
It's it doesn't make for a good coat hanger. You know?
No.
It's meant to be worn at night. But we can actually see those patients and screen them. They already have a diagnosis, and we can see if they're a candidate for an alternative option.
Just have them give a call, come on in, make an appointment.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't have to go through their physician. We can get the records that we need if they've already been diagnosed. And we can screen them and see if this is an option, because it's important that they're treating this, especially if they were put on a CPAP initially. That was a concern through their physician with all the other health factors that are associated with it.
So what are the risks, of putting your CPAP in the closet and not using it?
The list is a very, very long list, but hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, stroke, cancer, depression, you name it, it's probably on the list. Wow. It's associated with every organ system in your body. It's a lack of oxygen, and so that just starves those cells. You can't live without breathing or sleeping.
Sure.
It's essential. Even if we tried to stay awake and not go to sleep, we would eventually pass out. Our bodies just can't handle it. You can't make yourself stay awake. You go crazy first, and then you pass out. Sleep is important.
The crazy part I could live with, the passing out, not good when you're driving. But there are some people who may not have a CPAP machine. Maybe they haven't been diagnosed. Maybe they're just waking up a few times a night, or they're waking up with a dry mouth, or maybe their significant other says, "You snore too much, and I'm sleeping in a den."
Yes, we see that very often. And if that's the case, you should realize that there probably is an underlying concern there. And you need to be screened and diagnosed. And if there is a diagnosis that's positive for sleep apnea, you need to be treated for it.
So what would be the first step for someone like that who hasn't been diagnosed? Do they go to their doctor?
They certainly can go to their doctor. However, a lot of the doctors here do not have sleep programs in place. That's something that we're helping implement in our area. So more and more doctors are getting on board with this, and we're helping run sleep programs for them. However, you can actually call us and come to us as well. We can do a consultation, we can screen you, and we can refer you to the proper people to get you diagnosed and tested. I cannot diagnose someone with sleep apnea as a dentist. However, I can treat them once they have the diagnosis, and so we work very closely as a team with a lot of doctors to be able to help patients with that.
Because it really is a huge problem, not just a quality of life thing, but it's a public safety issue too. Tired driving is actually worse than drunk driving in some cases.
It is. You're 7 times more likely to have a motor vehicle accident when you're tired and driving, and it's a major problem.
And doing a lot of other things, for that matter.
Yes.
It's always better to get a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Tara Griffin, thank you so much for getting us smart on this stuff, and all these appliances that you have here. It's just so interesting. And I guess we'll learn more about those.
Thanks, Doug.
Another time. Thanks again. And we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Dr. Stephen Favaloro from Forest Park Animal Hospital, and he's going to tell us about hot spots.
Yeah,
so the pet tip of the week is hot spots.
Yeah.
What are hot spots?
Well, if you came in our office during the summer and just listened to the phone calls we get, it's like, my dog's got another hot spot. My dog's got a hot spot. So a hot spot is a skin disease, and it's generally associated with allergies or an insect bite, like a flea, or it can even be like a bee sting.
So it's like a skin irritation.
Well, what happens is you get an irritation, and then you get just an obnoxious amount of histamine release at that area, and then the dog does the rest.
Oh yeah, the dog will be chewing and picking.
Oh, but they don't. They chew at it like it's their job.
Wow.
They go at it. They'll tear the skin up. And what happens is then you'll get bacterial infection, and then the bacterial infection in essence, just explodes. And I mean, it's generally very superficial. It looks a lot worse than it is, but it's very obnoxious. It's very painful, and they usually come in, and it could be the size of my thumbnail, you know, in the morning, and by the afternoon, it could be this big.
And that's just from the animal picking at it.
Absolutely, because it's just so itchy. And so they'll come in, and it'll be this nice soupy exudate all over the skin. And I mean, the skin is just like raw, and it's irritated. So usually, like, if you catch them early, a lot of times you can just treat them at home. And so there's a little saying in dermatology, and it applies to anything with skin. If it's wet, dry it, and if it's dry, wet it.
Okay.
So usually they come in with these soupy infections, and people have been putting like ointment on it. Well, that's clean it out with, like, you know, soap and water, get it dry. Alcohol will dry it out. Of course, it doesn't feel very good.
No, it's
and
gonna be
then,
painful.
you know, try to put something like there's some over-the-counter products that are alcohol-based, like that, you know, you could put on there that'll, you know, have antibacterial properties. Like sulfadine is a good product that people use over the counter. And
No,
if
they
you
use
get
that
on,
for burns too, don't they?
well, I think that's more silver nitrate.
Okay.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay. Sulfadine, yes.
Yeah, so sulfadine. So that's one thing that people will use. But, you know, Benadryl helps, either topical or oral. You have to watch some of the things you put on there, because people will put, like, zinc oxide on it. Well, zinc is toxic to dogs. So if you can't stop them from continuing to chew at it, they're going to ingest anything you put on there.
So you really want to put some sort of antiseptic on there that
Yeah,
will
you
dry
wanna-
it out, perhaps?
You want to try to dry it out, but you know, and most of these can be treated at home if you catch them early. You know, the biggest thing is to keep your dog's mouth off of it. So you can go to any of the local
That's why I see
pet
these dogs
stores.
with these collars, with these big cones. What do
Yeah,
they
the
call those things?
Elizabethan collar or the cone of shame. But they make other ones too, depending on
cone
you know
of shame.
where it is. They make this one that looks like a neck brace, or like one of those like inner tubes when you go swimming. I saw you one wearing the other day. That's not, and,
I thought this
but
swimming in Lake Muriel.
but you blow it up and they can't get to it if it's like real close to like the
Right.
chest or anything. But
Just to keep them from picking at
correct,
the darn
because
thing.
their mouth does most of the damage. But sometimes they get too big, and you can't treat it at home. So usually we'll have to sedate those dogs because they're so painful, and we'll clip them up, and then we'll treat them with antibiotics and maybe steroids if they're healthy enough, and topicals. But the biggest thing is, like, keep your pet parasite free, and if you have allergies, try to keep those under control, because those are the two biggest things, underlying causes.
Right.
And then if you do see one, treat it pretty aggressively at home by keeping it clean, keeping it dry. Yeah. And if it gets to a point where you can't control it, then call your vet. They can take care of that.
Yeah,
for you.
and try to keep the dog's mouth open.
And that's actually probably one of the more important things too.
And you really got to relieve their pain somehow too.
Well, if you can, most of the itch is related, to infection and histamine release. So if you could put something on it that will clean it, if you can put an antihistamine on board, that'll stop the itching from the histamine release. And sometimes some of the over-the-counter products that have like benzocaine in it, like so it'll numb it a little bit, and that'll help too.
Yeah, poor critters. Now, if a dog's out, what do wild dogs do? They just, if this thing goes untreated, could they lose a limb? Can they die? Or
sometimes, I've seen dogs come in before where their whole back is covered. And if you don't get that under control and you get like a systemic infection from it, it could probably kill you. I've never seen one die from a hot spot. It'd be pretty obnoxious, but I guess it would be possible.
Do other animals get those?
Cats can get them. We mainly see them in dogs. I mainly do small animals, so those are the two species I see like 99.5% of the time.
Right. But imagine some.
Yeah, birds don't get it. I've never seen a bird get it.
Yeah, maybe horses, cattle.
Possible.
Yeah. Well, just check your dog's skin. Keep them healthy. If they're wet, keep them dry. If they're dry, get it wet. Right?
Skin lesions only.
Skin lesions only. Dr. Stephen Favaloro, thanks again for coming on the show.
All right, very good.
And talking about our pets. We'll be right back. And here's an original song from James Johnson called Love Her Like I Do.
Woman needs you. Ooh, I know it's true. So I'll tell you what to do. Don't you think of yourself. She really knows it's cool when you're out by yourself. But not when you're out alone with someone else. So love her like I do, and she'll be good for you. You see, I really know it's true, 'cause there's a bigger plan for you. She needs your affection now, through and through. And somebody else just won't do. So love her like I do, and she'll be good for you. You see, I really know it's true, 'cause there's a bigger plan for you. Love is the essence of all dreams. And love can last lifetimes, or so it seems. So love her like I do, and she'll be good for you. You see, I really know it's true, 'cause there's a bigger plan for you.